I've come to realise in recent years that I'm not nearly as grateful for all the good stuff that's going on in my life as I should be. I have a tendency to focus on those small few areas where things are not going quite as well as I'd like, and bemoan my life. And perhaps you're the same, or perhaps you know somebody who's like that. And I do recommend that you and I need to be thankful and believe. That's the snippet in my book, Be Thankful and Believe. So I think we need to be a little more grateful for the good stuff that's going on in our lives, which, when we stop to think about it, usually outweighs the bad stuff by a factor of multiple times. So let's be a little more grateful, please. 3 things then that I recommend you consider believing in. And the first of those is God. And the reason I suggest that you consider believing in God is I choose to believe. I'm not trying to foist my beliefs on you, by the way. I'm not trying to convert you. I'm just sharing with you a concept. I choose to believe there's a higher power. I choose to call that higher power God. Somebody else would call it the universe, divine intelligence, etc., etc. But I believe that there's more to this existence on this earth than just putting in 70 or 80 years and going back to the dust. So I choose to believe there's a God, and I'm recommending you consider doing the same. And if we choose to believe there's a higher power and that there's a reason for all this stuff, well then perhaps we'll bring that God, and I do that, into our regular lives. I choose to bring God into my regular life, because if he's there, if that higher power is there and is all loving and all giving and all powerful, well then why wouldn't I make that resource available to me in my life? I choose to bring God into meetings, and I bring God into meetings. I often put him in a chair next to me, because if I need grounding in the meeting, I will lean over to that chair and I'll touch it, and it just helps ground me. There have been busy rooms where I've ended up putting him on window ledges and on desks, but I bring him into meetings, and when I need grounding, I simply lean over or look over, and it helps me. I'm just putting that out there as a concept for you to consider. I'll be honest, asked God to zap a few fellows in meetings because they've annoyed me. He hasn't done that yet, but I live in hope one of these days. Anyway, the second thing I recommend you consider believing in is the inherent goodness of most people. Most people, when asked, will offer to help you. Most people will do their very best for you. There are, however, some shysters out there, and you've met them, and I've met them, and they continue to exist, but they are few and far between, first and foremost. They're few and far between, and they're sad, tragic, lonely people that get off on making you and I feel bad about ourselves. So why don't we just forget about them? Why don't we just move on? And I recommend that you consider believing in the inherent goodness of most people. I choose not to read the newspapers on a regular basis, and I choose not to listen to the news. Why? Because most of it's negative. And I choose not to allow the negative stuff into my head, because usually it's stuff that I can do nothing about. There's a war somewhere, there's a tragedy somewhere. I can do nothing about that. And by me constantly feeding my brain with that type of stuff, it just serves to bring me down, and therefore I can be less effective in my own world. So I choose to filter that stuff out. So I recommend you consider believing in the inherent goodness of most people, and then filter the stuff that's feeding into your brain. And finally, the last thing I recommend you consider believing in is yourself. You see, there's nobody sitting here today listening to me in your chair except you, with your unique life experience, with your unique view of the world, with your unique idea. Let's say we all went out, to all of us, you and I together, and all the others listening to this particular vlog, and we all went out and we opened up coffee shops tomorrow, side by side. They'd all be coffee shops, they'd all serve coffee, they'd all have sandwiches, they'd all have chairs, they'd all have cups and saucers, etc., etc., etc. So fundamentally, they'd be exactly the same business. However, and you know this to be true, simply because you and I are different, every one of those coffee shops would have to be different. Fact of life. So I recommend that you stop comparing yourself to other people and start believing in yourself, because whatever it is that's in your heart to bring to the world, there's nobody on the planet, nobody anywhere can actually bring it to the world in the unique way that you can, except for you. For all of those reasons, you're a unique individual. Your own unique life experience to date, your training to date, your way of looking at the world, and your unique idea. So I recommend that the world would be a poorer place if you choose not to bring to it what it is that's in your head and in your heart to do so. And I wish you well. And as ever, I hope you got something from that particular snippet. The objective behind this series of Coffees with Colm is whereby I take snippets from my business journey as chronicled in my book, Feeding Johnny, How to Build a Business Despite the Roadblocks. Take snippets on a weekly basis over a cup of coffee for about 5 minutes or so, share them with you and share the lessons contained therein, in the hopes that by me doing so I can afford you a shortcut in your business journey where perhaps back in the day I had none. What I'd ask that you would do is that you take what you've heard today and take some of the thoughts that I've shared and apply them into your thinking for the next week or so. If you think somebody else might benefit, well, please share it on. I'd love that. If you'd like to leave us a comment, you know what to do beneath the video. If you'd like more of this type of stuff on a regular basis and you're not already in our database, go to ColmO'BrienMotivation.com and leave us your details, and we'll make sure you get stuff like this. And most importantly, have a great week and come back next week for another Coffee with Colm. We'll take another snippet, another topic to discuss, another few lessons to be shared, and we'll see where it leads. So in the meantime, have a great week. Cheers. And treat yourself to some good coffee. Bye for now.